The voice on the other end of the line was my father's, David Chen, but it felt colder, more distant than the miles between Seattle and his home in Oregon could account for, like talking through a thick pane of frosted glass. "Sarah," he began, his tone flat, devoid of warmth. "End of the month is your mother's 60th birthday, a big one. Your sister, Jessica, she's bringing her new boyfriend home to meet everyone, Mark Henderson. He's with Summit Ventures, a big investment firm out of New York. Very successful, you understand?" I stayed silent, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. I knew where this was going. I always knew. "So," he continued, the word dragging slightly, heavy with implication, "it's probably best if you don't come down for this one. You know, your computer work, it's complicated, hard to explain. People ask questions, they compare. It'll just be awkward. For Jessica, and especially for Mark, let's not make things difficult, Sarah." Difficult, awkward, complicated, words that had become synonymous with my existence in their world. My throat felt tight. "You mean my being there would embarrass the family? I'm difficult?" A short pause crackled over the line. Then his voice hardened, hammering the final nail into the coffin of whatever fragile connection we had left. "If you insist on coming, Sarah, then don't bother calling me your father anymore." Click. He hung up. No hesitation, no room for argument, no trace of regret. Just the dead finality of the dial tone buzzing in my ear. My loft apartment in Seattle suddenly felt vast and unnervingly quiet. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the large industrial windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, but failing to penetrate the chill that had settled deep in my bones. "I'm Sarah Chen. I'm 34 years old. 3 days ago, I stood on a stage at a major tech conference, presenting how the artificial intelligence algorithms developed by my company, Helix Diagnostics, were poised to revolutionize early cancer detection. Helix, the company I co-founded straight out of grad school, had just closed a $15 million Series A funding round. The tech journals called us a potential unicorn, the future of diagnostic medicine. I poured my youth, my energy, every waking moment into building this from scratch. But to my family, nestled in their comfortable, predictable life in a small Oregon town, I was still just the odd daughter. The one always glued to a laptop, the one whose job was an incomprehensible string of jargon. Something with computers. My older sister Jessica, 3 years my senior, was their shining star. Pretty, personable, always dating someone suitable, even if her freelance marketing gigs barely paid her bills and her influencer status was more wishful thinking than reality. In the family constellation, Jessica was the sun. I was a distant, barely visible planet. At holidays, relatives flocked around her. "Jessica, you look gorgeous. Tell us about your new beau." Me? If I was acknowledged at all, it was with a vague, dismissive wave. "Oh, Sarah?" Yeah, she's still doing that tech thing up in Seattle. Like I was a footnote they couldn't quite decipher. My father's phone call wasn't the first cut, not by a long shot, but it felt like the deepest, the one that severed the last fraying thread of hope that maybe, someday, my success, my hard work, my contribution would finally earn me a place at their table. Contribution, that was the operative word. For the past 4 years, ever since Helix Diagnostics started generating real revenue, I'd become the family's silent, unacknowledged benefactor. It wasn't just covering the occasional utility bill or sending birthday checks. No, it was far more substantial. It was the $3,800 monthly mortgage payment on their spacious Oregon home, every single month withdrawn automatically from my account, like clockwork. It started subtly. Dad took early retirement. "Pension's not what we expected," he'd sighed. Mom lamented the rising cost of living. "Jessica's struggling between jobs right now, poor thing. We have to help her out," she'd murmur guiltily into the phone. They never directly asked me to pay the mortgage. They didn't have to. The implication hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken expectations. So I set up the autopay, because that's what the successful daughter did, right? The one who owed them for existing, apparently. 4 years, 48 months. That's $182,400. The number flashed in my mind, stark and cold. And that wasn't even the full picture. There were the emergencies. Like the time Mom called, frantic, claiming sudden severe chest pains required an emergency hospital stay, and $15,000 immediately for upfront costs insurance wouldn't cover. I wired the money instantly, sick with worry. Weeks later, a photo Jessica posted online and quickly deleted showed Mom, radiant and relaxed, enjoying a wellness retreat at a luxurious spa, complete with designer shopping bags. Another time, Dad needed $8,000 for urgent, major car repairs after breaking down. I later heard from my Aunt Linda, my mom's sister, and the only relative I maintained a semi-neutral relationship with, that Dad had used the money to trick out his old pickup truck with custom rims and a new sound system. They never asked if I could afford it. They never asked how my own fledgling company was doing, battling for survival in a cutthroat industry. They just assumed. My success, in their eyes, wasn't mine. It was a resource pool for them to tap into. Jessica, meanwhile, sharpened the knife with her backhanded compliments. "Gosh, Sarah, must be nice making all that money. If I were as loaded as you, Mom and Dad wouldn't have a care in the world. You're so lucky." Lucky? She had no concept of the 80-hour weeks, the crushing pressure, the constant fear of failure that defined my lucky life. This time, after Dad's call, I didn't cry. The years of quiet slights of being overlooked and undervalued had cauterized those tear ducts. Instead, a strange, icy calm settled over me. I walked over to my laptop, the sleek machine that represented everything they simultaneously resented and relied upon, logged into my bank account, navigated to the scheduled payment section. There it was, mortgage payment, Oregon property, $3,800. I stared at the line item for a long moment. Then, with a decisive click, I selected Cancel Auto Payment. A small confirmation box popped up. Scheduled payment successfully canceled. No fanfare, no warning bells, just silence. The silence of a lifeline being cut. Interestingly, I didn't cancel the smaller auto payments. Electricity, water, the high-speed internet package I paid for so Jessica could stream her shows without buffering. Not yet. It wasn't sentimentality. It was calculation. I wanted to see how long it would take for the absence of the major funding to register. How long before the minor inconveniences became overshadowed by the looming financial catastrophe. The days leading up to Mom's birthday party passed in a tense quiet from their end. They likely assumed I was sulking, nursing my wounded pride, and would eventually come around, checkbook in hand. A few days after the initial call, Mom phoned, her voice sickeningly sweet, as if nothing had happened. "Sarah, dear, remember to order Mama's favorite white lilies from that nice little shop, okay? And the strawberry cheesecake from the bakery? Get the large one, like always. Jessica's friend Mark is coming, you know." "I'm busy, Mom," I replied, my voice even, devoid of inflection, a beat of surprised silence on her end. "Oh, well, okay then." She hung up quickly, not bothering to ask why or to even mention Dad's ultimatum. My busyness, like my work, was apparently just another inconvenient complication. Then came the text from Jessica. "Hey, CTO extraordinaire. Too busy changing the world to remember your broke sister? Need a little cash infusion, payday's ages away, plus gotta buy a killer outfit and gift for Mark's debut. Can't look like a pauper next to Mr. Big Shot VC. Help a sister out?" I read the message, feeling a wave of nausea, the entitlement, the casual disregard, the underlying jealousy thinly veiled by emojis. I deleted the text thread and blocked her number. Amidst this personal turmoil, an email landed in my work inbox that made my blood run cold for a different reason. Subject, Potential Series B Investment Inquiry, Summit Ventures and Helix Diagnostics. I opened it. Summit Ventures, Mark Henderson's firm, was expressing strong interest in leading our next, much larger funding round. They were impressed by our Series A success and wanted an exploratory meeting. They proposed a date, the Tuesday after Mom's birthday party, and listed as the primary contact the investment director leading the potential deal, Mark Henderson. A humorless smile touched my lips. The universe, it seemed, had a dark sense of humor. Or perhaps it was just setting the stage for a reckoning. I calmly replied, confirming Helix's interest and availability for the proposed meeting date. I saved Mark Henderson's name and title to my contacts, and then I did nothing else. I simply waited. The day of Mom's 60th birthday arrived. Seattle was gray and drizzly, mirroring my mood. I stayed home working, trying to focus on code and projections, pushing thoughts of the party I was forbidden from attending, to the back of my mind. Around noon, my phone pinged, a text from Mom. "Sarah, the internet here is acting up something awful, keeps cutting out. Can you call the provider? I can't get anything done." I looked at the message, then put the phone down. I'd canceled the premium internet package 3 days prior. Let them experience the joys of basic DSL for a change. The silence stretched until early evening, around 6 p.m. Pacific time, prime party time in Oregon. Then my phone erupted. Call after call from Dad's number. I let it ring, watching the screen light up repeatedly. Finally, a voicemail notification popped up. I pressed play. Dad's voice, usually booming and self-assured, was strained, high-pitched with panic. "Sarah, the bank, they just called. Urgent. The mortgage payment bounced. System error, they said. If the funds aren't there within 24 hours, they start foreclosure proceedings. What the hell did you do?" Immediately following the voicemail came a barrage of texts from Jessica's new number. She must have unblocked me or used a friend's phone. Typos littered the furious stream of consciousness. "You did this on purpose, didn't you? Today of all days, when Mark is here." Mom is crying hysterically. Dad looks like he's going to have a stroke. "The whole family is freaking out because of you. You selfish monster, just 'cause you weren't invited to ruin everything." I hate-o. I read the messages, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just a profound emptiness. The drama unfolding miles away felt distant, unreal. Then a text from a number I recognized, Aunt Linda. "Sarah, honey, I'm hearing some very worrying things about the house payment and the bank. Is everything okay? People here are in a panic." I set my phone down on the coffee table, stared out the window at the rain-streaked city lights. They hadn't asked if I was okay after Dad disowned me. They hadn't cared about my feelings, my job, my life. Their panic wasn't about my well-being. It was about the disruption of their comfortable status quo, the sudden halt of the gravy train they'd ridden for 4 years. My existence only mattered when it served their needs. My absence, or rather, the absence of my money, was now causing a crisis. Fine, I thought, a cold resolve hardening within me. If they want a crisis, let them have one. Just then, my phone rang again. A video call request from Aunt Linda. I hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath, composed my features into a mask of calm neutrality, and accepted the call. The screen flickered to life, revealing the chaotic scene in my parents' living room. It was worse than I imagined. Mom was indeed sobbing uncontrollably on the sofa, clutching a damp tissue. Dad was pacing frantically, face puce, muttering curses under his breath. A few bewildered-looking relatives huddled in a corner, whispering amongst themselves. And there, standing awkwardly near the unlit birthday cake, was Jessica, trying desperately to maintain a semblance of composure in front of Mark Henderson, who looked profoundly uncomfortable. "Sarah," Aunt Linda began, her voice low and urgent, holding the phone slightly away from the main chaos. "What on earth is going on with the mortgage? The bank is serious, honey." I kept my voice level, calm but loud enough to carry across the room if anyone was listening. "Aunt Linda, it's quite simple. A few days ago, Dad called me. He explicitly told me not to come to Mom's birthday party because my presence and my complicated job would embarrass the family in front of Jessica's new boyfriend. I paused, letting the words sink in. He also said that if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. I looked directly into the camera lens. So, I'm respecting his wishes. I've stopped all financial contributions to this household. I can't, in good conscience, continue to support people who consider me an embarrassment and are willing to disown me over a dinner party. A stunned silence fell over the room. Mom's sobs hitched. Dad froze mid-pace, slowly turning towards Aunt Linda's phone, his face a mixture of disbelief and fury. Jessica, hearing my words, reacted instantly. She lunged forward, snatching the phone from Aunt Linda's grasp, her face contorted with rage and desperation. "You liar! You're twisting everything. You're just jealous of me and Mark," she shrieked into the phone, then immediately turned the camera towards Mark, her voice shifting into a tearful, manipulative whine. "Mark, see? I told you she was difficult. She's always been like this, trying to ruin things for me. She's deliberately trying to humiliate my family in front of you." Mark Henderson had been standing stiffly, observing the meltdown with a look of growing distaste. As the camera focused on him, he squinted at the screen, his expression shifting from discomfort to shock, then dawning recognition. He stepped closer to the phone Jessica was brandishing. "Wait a second," Mark said, his voice cutting through Jessica's hysterics. He was looking directly at me. "You're Sarah Chen from Helix Diagnostics?" Jessica froze, her fake tears drying instantly, confusion warring with panic on her face. Mark ignored her, his focus entirely on me through the small screen. "We have a meeting scheduled, Tuesday, about the Series B funding round." His voice resonated with disbelief. He turned slowly, looking from Jessica to my stunned parents, his eyes wide. You never told me that Sarah Chen, CTO and co-founder of one of the hottest AI biotech startups on the West Coast, was your sister? Your daughter?" He gestured vaguely around the chaotic room. "You told me she worked in computers or something?" Dead silence. The kind that's so heavy it feels like you could cut it with a knife. Jessica's face was ashen. My parents stood like statues, mouths slightly agape. The relatives stared, their earlier curiosity replaced by shock and dawning understanding. I maintained my composure, offering a cool, professional smile. "Yes, that's correct, Mark. A pleasure to meet you under such unique circumstances. I hope my family's private matters haven't disrupted your evening too much. I look forward to our discussion on Tuesday." And with that, I tapped the end call button. The screen went black, plunging my Seattle apartment back into silence. But I knew with chilling certainty that the real storm in Oregon was just beginning. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Aunt Linda texted later that night. Mark Henderson had excused himself shortly after the video call ended, citing a sudden, unforeseen conflict. He then privately told Jessica their relationship was over. His reason, relayed by a devastated Jessica to Aunt Linda, was damning. I can't be with someone who is capable of such profound disrespect towards her own family and who deliberately misrepresented her sister's significance to me. The way you and your parents treated Sarah tonight speaks volumes, and frankly, it disgusts me. My phone then became a conduit for Jessica's spiraling meltdown. First came the vitriolic texts, blaming me for ruining her life, calling me names I won't repeat. Then, as desperation set in, the tone shifted to tearful pleas. "Sarah, please talk to Mark. It was all a misunderstanding. You have influence, you're important. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him it wasn't like that. He'll listen to you. Please, I can't lose him." I sent only one reply. "Mark Henderson is a potential business partner, not my subordinate. Your personal relationship and the consequences of your actions are yours alone to manage." Then I muted her notifications. A few days later, a familiar car pulled up outside my apartment building. My parents. They looked ravaged. Dad's usual bluster was gone, replaced by a gray weariness. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. They didn't look angry anymore, just defeated and desperate. They sat stiffly on my minimalist sofa, the expensive furniture a stark contrast to their frayed appearances. After a long, awkward silence, Dad spoke, his voice raspy. "Sarah, the house. The bank wasn't bluffing." Mom picked up the thread, her voice trembling. "They've started the official foreclosure process, honey. We have maybe a week, 10 days at most, before they serve the final notice." I waited, sipping my water, my face impassive. I knew this wasn't the whole story. And then came the second twist, the ugly truth they had guarded for 5 long years. Dad, his eyes fixed on the floor, confessed. His early retirement wasn't voluntary. He'd been let go. And before that, he'd gotten sucked into high-risk day trading, chasing elusive fortunes based on tips from equally foolish friends. He'd lost almost everything. Their savings, a significant chunk of his retirement fund. To cover the losses and maintain appearances, he'd resorted to high-interest loans, maxed-out credit cards. The $3,800 I'd been sending faithfully every month? It wasn't just paying the mortgage. It was barely keeping the loan sharks and credit card companies at bay, plugging leaks in a ship that was already halfway sunk. They had lied to me, manipulated me, for years. "So you see, Sarah," Mom concluded, tears streaming down her face now, her voice taking on a pleading, almost demanding tone. "We have nothing left. You're our only hope. You're successful. You have the means. It's your responsibility, your duty, to save your family." Responsibility. Duty. There were those words again. I listened to their confession, the scale of their deceit washing over me, not with anger, but with a chilling clarity. My compassion hadn't just been unappreciated, it had been actively exploited to enable their lies. I stood up, walked to my desk, and retrieved a notepad and pen. Returning to my seat opposite them, I met their expectant, desperate gazes. "All right," I said, my voice steady. "I will consider helping you avoid immediate foreclosure." A flicker of relief crossed their faces. "However," I continued firmly, "it will not be a gift, and it comes with strict, non-negotiable conditions." I began to write, speaking each condition aloud as I did. 1. Formal, notarized apologies. I require separate, handwritten letters of apology from you, Dad, from you, Mom, and from Jessica. These letters must explicitly acknowledge the unfair treatment, the financial exploitation over the past 4 years, and the specific insults and actions surrounding Mom's birthday, including the demand that I not attend and the threat of disownment. Each signature must be notarized. Their faces began to tighten, disbelief warring with desperation. 2. Jessica's accountability. Jessica must secure stable, full-time employment with a verifiable contract within the next 3 months. Starting from her first paycheck, she must provide me with monthly proof of income and expenses. She is to cover 100% of her own personal costs and contribute a minimum of 30% of her net income towards your household expenses. Mom and Dad. Mom gasped audibly. "But Sarah, she's going through so much." Condition 3, I cut her off, my voice hardening. A formal loan agreement, not a gift. I underlined the words, loan and not gift. If, and only if, conditions 1 and 2 are met consistently for a period of 6 months, I will consider providing a loan. This loan will be strictly limited to the amount required to halt the immediate foreclosure proceedings on the Oregon house. Nothing more. It will be structured as a formal, legally binding loan, drafted by my attorneys at the prevailing market interest rate. The Oregon house itself will serve as collateral for this loan. Failure to adhere to the repayment schedule outlined in the contract will result in my legal right to claim the collateral. I placed the pen down and pushed the notepad across the coffee table towards them. These are my terms. Take them or leave them. Dad stared at the notepad as if it were a venomous snake. His face flushed a deep, dangerous red. He slammed his fist onto my expensive coffee table, making the water glasses jump. You dare, he roared, his voice trembling with impotent rage. You dare set conditions for your own parents, after everything we did for you, raised you, fed you, clothed you. Ungrateful. This is how you repay us? With contracts and lawyers? I rose slowly to my feet, meeting his furious gaze without flinching. I am not ungrateful, Dad. I am setting boundaries. You and Mom turned our family relationship into a financial transaction years ago. You benefited from that transaction while hiding the truth and treating me with contempt. Now, the terms of the transaction have changed. We will proceed according to clear, legal principles. I pointed towards the door. Accept the conditions or leave. There was nothing more to discuss. The absolute conviction in my voice, the cold finality in my eyes, seemed to finally break through his fury, leaving behind only stunned silence. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, speechless. Mom tugged at his arm, whispering frantically. They stood up, defeated, shoulders slumped. They walked out of my apartment without another word, the weight of their choices, their deceit, and now their consequences heavy upon them. The solid click of the door closing behind them felt like the closing of a painful, decades-long chapter. This time, I was the one holding the pen, writing the final sentence. In the weeks and months that followed, I never received any notarized letters of apology. Aunt Linda informed me, sadly, that Jessica made no serious effort to find stable employment, instead drifting between temporary gigs and complaining about how unfair life was. As predicted, the bank finalized the foreclosure. My parents lost the house they had lived in for 30 years. They moved into a small, cramped rental apartment across town. Aunt Linda relayed this news with a heavy heart, perhaps expecting some sign of remorse or guilt from me. I felt a pang of sadness, not for them, but for the idealized image of family I had clung to for so long, an image that had now irrevocably shattered. But overshadowing the sadness was a profound sense of relief. A malignant weight had been lifted. Helix Diagnostics continued its upward trajectory. The Series B funding round closed successfully, significantly oversubscribed. Summit Ventures, led by Mark Henderson, became one of our key investors. Our professional interactions were always courteous, focused, and mutually respectful. The disastrous birthday party, the messy family drama, it was never mentioned. Some things, once understood, are best left buried. Life found a new rhythm. Quiet mornings with strong coffee, challenging days filled with strategic decisions, late nights collaborating with a team I respected and who respected me back. I started building my own family, a close circle of friends, trusted colleagues, mentors, people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could provide. Sometimes, sitting in a cafe overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the ferries glide across the water, I reflect on the path I took. Society often labels women like me, women who choose boundaries over blind familial duty, as cold, selfish, or ungrateful. But I know the truth. Allowing yourself to be consistently disrespected, manipulated, and taken for granted isn't loyalty. It's self-abandonment. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's an act of self-preservation, of recognizing your own worth even when those closest to you refuse to. I didn't seek revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't scheme or plot their downfall. I simply withdrew my complicity in their dysfunction. I spoke the truth, laid out clear consequences based on fairness and legality, and allowed them to face the results of their own actions. They made their choices over many years. I finally made mine, and in doing so, I found a measure of peace I never thought possible. Now, thinking about my story and perhaps yours, I have to ask, 1. Do you think I, Sarah, was too harsh in letting my parents face the full consequences, including losing their home? Or was it the necessary, inevitable outcome of their long-term actions and deceit? 2. Looking ahead for Sarah, which path feels more resonant? Choose the next chapter. A. Years later, acknowledging human fallibility and perhaps seeing genuine remorse from her aging parents, Sarah cautiously reopens communication, seeking to build a new relationship based strictly on honesty and mutual respect. B. Sarah continues to thrive in her chosen life and career, maintaining her firm boundaries, keeping her biological family at a distance, content with the peace and chosen family she has built, never looking back. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and your story might just be the validation someone else needs as they navigate the difficult terrain between familial obligation and personal freedom.